This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. Today we're going to be speaking with someone who is not just a magician, but he's also a musician. Not only that, he is also a philanthropic person who works with charities. He is also an author and works the Magic Castle quite frequently. Anyhow, a man who does a little bit of everything and does them all successfully, plus balances his home life with his family as well. Lives out in the Los Angeles area. I'm talking about John Guastaferro. Guastaferro, I guess, actually is the way you pronounce it in the Italian way from what he tells me. And I want to introduce him to you because you may or may not have seen him at, I believe he was at Magi Fest, he said back in 2024 when he lectured, but you may have read one or more of his books. He has 3 books that are out by the time that this is released. The newest book will be out. And so he's going to be offering a couple of these books as gifts that you can perhaps win in our contest. And so for more information, just wait until the back end. We'll talk about that briefly over here. But anyhow, he is someone who should be on your radar. I think it's quite interesting because of not only his skills, but also his creativity and his inspiration that he gives every day of his life, and how that he lives his life in being not only a creator, but also working with philanthropy organizations and helping to cure cancer in children. So I'm going to step out of the way and introduce my friend here this week, who I know you will enjoy hearing. Please welcome John Guastaferro here on The Magic Word. I'm excited today about having someone that I have not necessarily had on my radar for a while, and I apologize to all of the listeners for not having him on sooner and wonder why we haven't actually met. We were just talking about this off the mic just a few moments ago about how our paths haven't crossed. So we have so many mutual interests in people and places and things. However, he's busy, I'm busy, but anyhow, you guys, we're going to remedy that today. John Guastaferro, there we go, Guastaferro, that is the person who's going to be speaking with us today. And I'm excited because of so many different things that he is doing and has done, and directions we can go with this conversation, certainly, beyond being a magician and an author also. He's got 3 books, and newest of which has just recently come out. But beyond that, also very involved with the Hyundai automobile group and the Hyundai, what's it called? Motor?
Yeah, 2 nonprofit foundations, Hyundai and Genesis.
Hyundai and Genesis, both of which are working with the cancer research, and he is involved with that. Had even received recently a honorary doctoral degree from Syracuse, not Syracuse, it was from Savannah College. That's
yeah.
right, yeah. And also is near and dear to my heart, although I do not play a guitar, he does, and I absolutely love. It's like the flamenco and jazz guitar. He reminds me so much of the stylings of Otmar Lieber, who is one of my favorite musicians, not just guitar players, but it could be played in rotation with the rest of that, and it's kind of like, which one is playing. He's really, really talented in so many different areas. So we got different routes we can go down here today, but I want to get this started and welcome my guest here today, John Guastaferro. Hi there, John. How are you, sir?
Hey, Scott. Thank you so much. I'm glad we're finally making the connection.
Indeed.
I'm an avid listener and fan of yours, so it's great to be a guest now and talk this way. So yeah, thank you. And by the way, that I've heard my name said so many ways. It's a long Italian last name, so now we know why people call me John G. Right? So
well, someone was asking me, is it a Latin name? And I said, no, it's Italian. Isn't that correct?
Italian. That is right. Yeah.
Okay. So you have Italian roots. Were your grandparents from Italy?
My grandfather was born in Sicily. And there's a long lineage before that as well. So
and do you get back?
So I was never, I heard it kind of growing up, but I was my mom and I were born in the States and everything, but yeah, definitely Italian heritage.
Guastaferro.
That's
Is
it.
the R trill like ferro
Oh,
or?
I don't know. I'll have to research that. 57 years of this, and I don't even know.
Now, one of the things, of course, we have in common is working the Magic Castle, and you are a regular performer there, mainly in the
Yeah,
close-up room. Is that right?
that's right. Yeah, I just finished a week up there as
Hmm.
well. It's fantastic.
And I know they've kind of been changing things a little bit this year. That has that affected the performers at all, or just upper management and the board and different kinds of things?
Yeah,
Who is
I
that?
made some changes. Ultimately, without getting all the details, Randy Pitchford is an advocate of magic.
Mhm.
He wants to continue making the castle as successful and as possible, and here in the long term for all of us. I performed there, and honestly, I didn't notice any difference. If anything, yeah, it just felt really great to be back. Staff was amazing. And yeah, I had a great week performing there. Randy was in one of my shows. He's also, and he couldn't attend because he was traveling, but also approved and worked with me in Vanishing Ink on doing a book signing event for my newest book, Final Degree. So we did that on March 1st, and yeah, so I'm glad he's really wants to celebrate magic, and he has a lot of great things and made some physical improvements you can already notice, and a lot more coming. But yeah, always a joy to perform at the castle. Been doing it for my gosh over a decade, and yeah, love every minute of it. Audiences are fantastic too.
You say you've been performing there for over a decade. Do you remember the first time that you were performing?
Yeah, it's probably 2015, 14, something around there, and I've been a member for many, many years before that. I even talk about this in my books, like even the essays. Like I was so resistant to performing there. I was there all the time just to hang out, and ultimately I was just focusing on jamming and sessioning and then
Hmm.
creating as well, right? So, but performing just wasn't on my radar. And then ultimately, like, I was probably encouraged by others more than me encouraging myself to do so. But finally, yeah, it's about time. Let's just do this. And I don't know what the fear was, or I mean, I said I was busy with work. I said I was, it just wasn't my goal. But ultimately, it was just this hurdle to get over. And I remember going to Jack Goldfinger, who's the entertainment director, and it was an amazing week. I said, I don't know why I waited so long. He's John, that was just you getting in the way of you. I go, oh my God, you're right. It was me getting in the way of me. It was a good lesson, and I've haven't let that happen since. So
Jack has so much gold. Every word
he
seems like what
does.
he's saying is like, oh, man, that is you're right.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I have heard people also, of course, who have been reluctant or worried or scared about doing it their first time. But once you get in there, it's kind of like, yeah, where's this been all my life? This is fantastic. I really enjoy it. The audiences are accepting. They're open to magic. That's why they come there, of course, and they want to see good magic. And they see you, and you're thinking, oh, I'm really not going to be good enough. But then once you get in there and you start getting them laughing and oohing and
Uh,
eyeing, it's like this is where I need to be.
it's the best. It's so funny. I just finished a week and had David Regal as early close or the closest right before me, and then Larry Wilmore, a good friend of ours,
Hmm. Right.
producer, writer, also magician after me. So the three of us have become a trio, and they often book the three of us together. But anyway, we talk like, oh my God, like a grueling week ahead, like 30 shows, and it's just this mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. And then when you get to your last show, like you miss it so much and you can't
Right.
wait to be back. So that's what it's about. It's interesting just every time I perform there, like I have a solid act. I do, but I have fun kind of. And this show, I think I'll do a different opener, just see how it goes. I like having fun being a little bit flexible, and kind of using the audience as my mirror to see how some things are playing. And yeah, it's always fun.
Do you have different shows that you do each time that you come back, or do you try to just refine the same thing over and over?
You know, I'd say about 50% of the show always stays the same.
Hmm.
I'm kind of known for my closing effect. It's called Vino Aces, and it's essentially my take on McDonald's Aces, but with wine glasses. And that doesn't do it justice. There's more. I have music that I've written playing in the background, telling a story about Italy. But there's so many nice touches, and it's just a my favorite closer, my go-to closer. Yeah, and there's probably one or two that I always do as well. But other than that, I try to mix it up just for my sake, but also for the audience's sake as well.
Do you get back just annually, or do you go there fairly
Twice a
reg
year.
twice a
Twice,
year?
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's true for most magicians as
Hmm.
well. Yeah, but twice a year is perfect for me because I spend. And I'll just talk about real briefly. Yeah, my life is rooted in philanthropy and magic and music and any other creative ventures. So, but yeah, I've been involved in the nonprofit sector for over 20 years, and before that, more in marketing and advertising. Yeah, but I've devoted my career, my life to making good in the world. So I currently lead the corporate foundations for Hyundai Motor America and Genesis Motor America. Each has their own cause. Hyundai Hope on Wheels is focused on pediatric cancer research, and we're among the largest funders in the nation, giving over $300 million so far to this cause. And then on the Genesis side, our foundation is focused on youth arts education, which is really personally meaningful to me because I was that kid growing up, where the arts were so important to me. So to be able to kind of give back in that way. So yeah, I oversee about $30 million of philanthropy each year and nationwide, traveling the nation. But in between all those little pockets of time, I perform, I write music, and I talk about this in my books as well in the essays, but I call it like using all the crayons in your box.
Hmm.
We don't need to just do one thing. And often I'm doing, two or three things at the same time, and they just all enrich and uplift each other. So
Well,
it's
it's
great.
interesting how the one thing does kind of build on the other, certainly, because you're making these contacts. But the interesting thing is, I'm assured that you don't use this necessarily just as networking. That's just a byproduct. This is something that's coming from your heart that you want to do.
Yeah, I think in more of an idealistic standpoint, it's just another way to bring wonder to the world. And
Hmm.
I often say, sometimes I'm on like a morning talk show doing some magic, but I'll say like, okay, we made things look impossible for a few minutes, but let me talk about some of the other near impossible circumstances we're helping to fund through these foundations, and so it's a nice segue. But I'm, I often share both in all my social networks about my mission, my life mission is to connect people to the extraordinary. And that is the common denominator of everything we just talked about. And it's what guides me every day.
Now, Hyundai on Hope on Wheels is something that, and Genesis also. Is Genesis is a car manufacturer? Is
Yeah,
that
they're the luxury brand of Hyundai,
okay?
basically. Yeah.
But they are working, I assume, with curing cancer in the world essentially, but mostly trying to focus on the United States.
Yeah, these are U.S. foundations. And Hyundai Open Wheels has been around for 28 years. And we just started global expansion last year. So basically using our model, we pioneered in the States and in other countries, Mexico, Canada, Europe to follow. And so it's great to see the work we're doing. But I oversee the U.S. foundations for Hyundai and Genesis. So.
I've got to think there are a lot of magicians out there who are thinking, I would like to help in some way with whatever my passion or my cause would be, but they just
Yeah.
don't know how to go about this. Did they find you or did you find them? In other words, did they see your show and think, oh, this guy would be perfect,
Uh,
or we really enjoy his personality, or you get to know the executives, or how did that
That's a
actually
good
come
point.
about?
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely ingrained in the nonprofit sector. I serve on many boards here in Orange County, California, where I live. Um, yeah, basically about 4 years ago, a job opened up, and actually my older daughter said, "Hey, you should put your hat in the ring here. This looks like you." They're looking for an executive director of it's like a dual role, both corporate foundations. And before that, I was leading a smaller community foundation here in Anaheim, California. So. Yeah, so I mean, it really had nothing to do with the magic. It was more just as my career, my resume. So, yeah, but I went through like almost a 6 month process. There were 700 people who applied for this
Really?
across the
Wow.
nation. So, and I didn't know that until after I was offered the
Got the
position,
job?
and they
Yeah.
said, "Wow, you should be really proud. We sifted through 700 applications and got it down to like the top 20, top 10, top five." I said, "Oh my God, it's real." But yeah, I think the reason is that it's a spectrum of things. I'm the face of the organization. I'm often talking to the media and interviews, so that I think that stage presence that sort of drawing a little bit from magic
Hmm.
comes through.
Hmm.
Certainly the know-how I have in overseeing grant making and board governance and fundraising and everything in between. Also, yeah. So it's the spectrum of skills they needed, and they needed just the right person. So. Yeah, but I had a board member tell me recently, we were at an event, and they're all, I don't have to keep anything secret. All the stuff I do, the magic of music, they think it's great. And he said, man, we have the right person for the job, not just by the way you lead the foundation, but just the way you lead your life. And I thought that was really cool. That was really cool. I think maybe some old-fashioned, boards might think, hey, wait a minute, is this magic thing you're doing on the weekends and taken away from this? And no, in a real way that really enriches it. I think I call it like a brand within a brand. You can have your personal brand that meshes with your your organization's brand if you
Yeah,
work
there's
for a
not a
company.
conflict because you're not bringing to the table of doing magic tricks and trying to get people to book you like what you're doing
Right.
it.
No, not that.
They're completely
No, and
separate.
I invite my team, I invite board members and donors to the castle to see me perform. Just invite them into my world, which is
Sure.
great. And sometimes even when on the corporate side, or like Genesis Invitational, which is the huge high-end golf tournament they have at Riviera Country Club. It's all Golf Channel on ESPN and CBS. But anyway, so I'm only involved in an ancillary way because we are a recipient of proceeds from the
Hmm.
event, which is great. But then Genesis Motor America said, hey, we're hosting a marketing dinner just for our social media influencers on the corporate side, do you think you might be able to do some magic for them? I said, sure, absolutely. So
Since
here
you're
I am. They're
asking,
tapping it. So it does kind of cross over. And I did the same thing in New York a few months ago. They had on Hyundai had their really nice dinner because you know what they do is they get these influencers who have
sure.
millions of followers and they help sell the car basically. I'm not about selling the car. I'm about selling the mission of the foundations. But
Yeah.
but they said, hey John, like we're having a really nice dinner in New York at this restaurant. Maybe you could do like 10 minutes of magic before we start. I'm there. So it's kind of cool that they tap into that in a way. But I'm pretty elusive with it unless they ask me about it. So
How much of your time, percentage-wise, then, John, would you say that you would give to working with your philanthropic activities versus working on your magic?
I mean, yeah, that's
I
my
mean,
day
music and
job. So
everything else is
that is
separate,
my
but
yeah. So Hyundai Genesis is my obviously my main priority. So
mhm.
um, and since magic and music is something I want to do, not something I have to do, I could pick and choose my gigs. And there may be times where I'm just doing one gig a month, especially when I'm traveling. Usually April through September, I'm traveling incessantly for work. So I'll just do a handful of gigs. Um, Usually I do the castle like June and November because it just kind of fits. And I'll take the week
Uh-huh.
off. I'll take the week off work because I could focus on that and have any sort of conflict. But yeah, but and yeah, weekends are free game, evenings are free game, and I'll do a spectrum of gigs, whether it be music or magic or both. I often do some hybrid gigs as well, where I'm maybe playing Spanish flamenco jazz guitar as guests arrive, and then I'll do a short magic show before
People are
the
going, wait a minute,
they're
that's just the same guy who was
that's
just
right. It's
playing.
kind of magical in a way. Even that's kind of cool, right? So
Sure.
it's fun. I enjoy it, and often like you and I know, and you have a magic gig, you got to be on. I mean, especially if you're doing a 2 hour strolling gig, like
Yeah.
you got to be completely on. And where music, and it's not usually a thing where they all sit and watch. It's more ambient and be in the corner of a cocktail hour,
Right.
basically.
Well,
Like just
particularly the kind of music that you're playing, where you're just playing
mine
kind
is
of
exactly. It's all instrumental, original music, and
right.
yeah. But it's a different kind of effort. It's not engagement, but it's just more focusing, and sometimes
Hmm.
just close my eyes a bit and just play, and I love it. And so yeah, it's kind of refreshing to have a music gig sometime, and I love magic. I love close-up magic, interacting with people as well. But yeah, it's a different type of energy. So
When you are
yeah.
working and talking about your, I guess it could be considered a full-time job as far as like mostly in the summer months you were saying. I assume this is not something that you're doing just out of the goodness of your heart, which you are mainly, however, that you're getting
Yeah.
compensated for that. Because
Oh yeah.
most time when people are thinking, okay, when people give us a call and say, hey, we've got a fundraiser, we don't have any money, next thing they
Yeah.
always say, but can you do
Yeah.
something? Well, that's not at all what you're doing.
Yeah.
This is actually a paid position and something that you do.
This
And
is it's a well-paid position. I mean, the nonprofit sector, just like any other sector, education, public sector, et cetera, business, we're all solving different kinds of problems. So, and
sure.
we're solving problems that nobody else can solve. I mean, we have the expertise. I work with the medical advisory committee. We're doing research grants and making some life-changing, life-saving breakthroughs in pediatric cancer. So it's big work. It's a big job. So yeah, so it's when you're a nonprofit, the misnomer is oh, it's a shoestring budget. No, I'm overseeing like about a $30 million budget for both foundations, and
Hmm.
yeah, obviously, it takes a lot of leadership and decades of experience to do this. So yeah, it's an executive position, so I get paid for that. But philanthropy is important to me, so I do walk the talk, like so in terms of magic. So if usually if nonprofits reach out, hey, are you free this night to do a gig? I'll give them a nonprofit rate. So I like to walk the talk in that way. So,
When you're saying that you're going to be directing some of the funds for that, I assume that you don't have a background in medicine. So when they're saying, well, we need
right.
to have these machines,
Yeah,
and they're
good
probably
question.
talking some medical talk that you're going, okay, whatever you say.
Yeah. Well,
So,
that's why I have I work closely with the board of directors but we have a medical advisory committee of
mhm.
experts around the table. So it's a lot of listening and ultimately they're reviewing and these grants and giving their opinion, and ultimately the board approve where the funding goes. Yeah, but we need that clinical perspective. Yeah, can't be an expert in everything. But yeah, listening to them has been important. And they brought up a term I hadn't heard of in the not in the pediatric cancers area called survivorship, meaning like about 80, 85, 86% overall of kids are surviving cancer, which is a big number.
That
It's
is
not
a
big
big
enough.
number, of
We want to get it to 100%,
course.
but the good thing is that, kids who families receive that devastating news, they have cancer, depending on what kind it is, you know,
So many different types of cancer too. Certainly, you're
there is. So
covering
when you're
all of
giving
these
these
things,
overall rates, some are 99% curable, some are less. But
right?
so not to get all the details, but bottom line, more kids are surviving cancer than ever before. But that doesn't mean their challenges are over. They have a life filled with, checkups and tests and side effects and everything. So anyway, listening to my medical advisory committee, we put together a survivorship, initiative. So we funded a $5 million survivorship initiative last year. So we're kind of leading the charge on that. So
Are you working
yeah.
with Make-A-Wish Foundation also? So whenever the children have certain wishes or they might want to meet,
Not directly, and they're doing great work.
okay,
St. Jude does great work. I think we
yeah.
fund a little bit for St. Jude, but ultimately we're funding, researchers who are dedicating their life to
Ah, I
be
see.
in the
Sure.
lab, and then about 175 hospitals across the nation. So, yeah, but it's great. I think Make-A-Wish, others are doing great work as well, and I think shoulder to shoulder, we're all doing collective work. So anyway, that's a magical part of my life, so to speak, and being able to see these kids firsthand. It just uplifts me. So, yeah, but despite all of that, I'm always thinking about magic. So, yeah, even I may not have a gig, I'm like, I always think about the next idea or always have a deck of cards in my bag. So, and so that's obviously the exciting part of my life as well.
Do you see yourself as a creator?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think I used to, but when I used to hang at the castle years ago, and they used to have this thing like Wednesday nights used to be the night we'd stay, like all the magicians would hang out till like 2 in the morning. And
Yeah.
often we'd take it probably to IHOP or, Cantor's Deli after that to continue jamming. But yeah, but I guess organically, other magicians were saying, "Wow, I haven't seen that idea before," or you've come up with a lot of stuff. So two quick examples of that. I've seen myself as a creator, where Gordon Bean at the time was the librarian at the
hmm
castle,
hmm
and I would show him everything I was coming up with, um, and I didn't even have this whole 1 degree concept like verbalized yet. But yeah, I was making these small but important changes where they were create these fooling moments or get these more audience engagement moments. But yeah, I think Gordon helped see me as a creator. And then David Regal, again, one of my longtime friends, and it just I had read Star Quality written by Harry Lorraine, and just I knew some of his tricks. And I'm so nervous to meet David for the first time. We're just going back probably 20 years now, but I showed him a version of his trick. He had a trick called Joker works overtime, and I had a twist on it. And he liked it, made him think about it, like, wait a minute, what's going on there?
Yeah.
And I continued showing Gordon, David, and others, But we got to a point where David says, "Hey, I'm going to be going up to Tahoe to film my new DVD set with L&L
L&L.
Publishing."
Yeah.
Like, yeah, L&L, exactly. And he said, you should talk to Lewis over there and see, let me put in a word for you. So I put together like a demo tape, just filmed at home with my girlfriend, my wife now at the time, and we just sent it to Lewis, and he loved it. So here's L&L working with Michael Lamar, Easy to Master, Guard Miracles, all that stuff, and David Regal, and Bill Malone, all those. And I was a no name, no one knew who I was. But they liked the material so much that I went up to Tahoe with David. So he filmed his, I think it might have been a 3 DVD set, Power Premise Participation. And then with that same audience, I followed him and then did my inaugural DVD set called Brainstorm, and that was in 2003. So wow, that's oh my God, I'm old. Yeah, 23 years ago. So and it was just magicians love the material. And then I had people like John Bannon and John Rockerbomber reaching out to me, you're heroes of mine. And there's like
Sure.
Bannon, I think Bannon said like, "Oh my God, I got your DVDs. I couldn't stop it. I watched all of them and every trick I just, loved." And so I think that put me on the map as a creator. And I still do that material and have evolved ever since.
I'm sure that was a great experience for you to go to L&L because I remember when Banachek and I went to do his back then VHS tapes.
Yeah,
We were
yeah,
doing
yeah,
the Psy series, the four. When you say DVDs, we were doing VHS, the
yeah.
four VHS set. But Lewis was so great, and the audience was wonderful and accepting. And I remember I was sitting next to Lewis, and he looked at me and said, "That's really good. I like this." It's like because he's
Nice.
watching Banachek. Well, of course he's Banachek. But anyhow, yeah. And then they had the food. They had a chef that came, and I remember for dinner. Then it happened that Johnny Thompson and Fielding West were in South Lake Tahoe, and so they drove over and had dinner with us at
Oh, how
at his house.
fun. That's the
So we
best.
had a great
I'm
evening, and
nostalgic now.
we were there for the whole weekend. And
Yeah.
so I'm sure that you enjoyed
I tell you,
your time with
I was
Lewis
a
also.
fanboy in there, just like oh my God, like even with I don't know, David, one of the audience members,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh my God, I know who you are. It's so weird. Uh, and a lot of people ask you like, really, that audience paid to react? I go, no, they just
No.
love magic. They're just
Yep.
genuinely,
Yeah.
they just like in awe. They love this stuff. It was so great. And yeah, fun experience. And I went back a few years later and did a follow-up called Second Storm DVDs. Then, so I was kind of branded as the Brainstorm, Second Storm kind of magician for a while. And then I kind of rebranded in many ways. In 2010, I wrote, my first hardcover book with Vanishing Ink called One Degree.
Hmm.
And as I alluded to earlier, these are tricks I've been doing for years. And I realized, man, God, if I just add this one little thing.
So explain
um,
exactly what the 1 degree is, because I do want to talk about this book series because
Sure,
you have
sure.
the nth degree and the
I
next degree and
Yeah, I mean, we're all improving magic, but I found sometimes it was the smallest of changes that had the biggest of impact. And call it a micro shift, right? And we hear this in
I
business
like
as
that
well.
microshift. Yeah.
It's a micro shift. So and then in the nth degree, the follow-up book, I really unpack it even more. Like here's 10 criteria of what I think a 1 degree change is. Because not every change is a 1 degree. Sometimes magicians go, hey, I added a 1 degree. Like, well, you kind of made it worse. Honestly, so you have to have a good eye for what and good judgment for what a good trick is. But I think on my second storm DVDs, I had a trick called optical opener, and essentially a card selected, and then it's the only printed card in a blank deck, and then
Hmm.
things flip, and then it becomes the only blank card in a printed deck. And then, so in 1 degree, the opening trick is called truth in advertising, essentially an updated version of optical opener. But that card, that principal card, that's the only printed card, then the only blank card, I made it an odd back. So it's like, oh, interesting. Why did I do that? The handling hasn't changed. It's no more difficult at all. And then I gave meaning to the odd back. It says "pick me" on the back. But even more than that, the presentation is rooted in an authentic experience for me in advertising, where I got my career started. So it's the whole theme is up, subliminal advertising, and um, anyway, it's hard to describe if you don't see the trick. But it just turned like good reactions into fantastic reactions with like hardly any extra effort. So
Hmm.
the book kind of had several examples of that. These are things I've been doing for years, and I just realized, man, this one little change. So I described the effects, the presentation, everything from start to finish, but also how the 1 degree philosophy evolved and improved that trick. And I also had a lot of essays in 1 degree, and just drawing on my experience as a speaker and as a advertising executive and at the time and everything. And magicians really found it valuable. I was kind of nervous in a way, like, well, why do I have an essay on what is your brand in a magic book? But I'm challenging magicians to think broader because it's more than finding aces in your pocket. It's about creating an experience. You need to be sure who you are.
Connecting with the audience.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so that 1 degree has a few different meanings too. Essentially, it's the microchip, but it also is, this you talk about like 6 degrees of separation of Kevin Bacon, but you have a
Hmm.
1 degree connection with your audience, like a give and take in real time. So, um, but anyway, so I kind of transitioned from, brainstorm to this degree, and I didn't know at the time it would evolve into a trilogy. And uh, while I'm on the topic, so I had 1 degree. It ended up just, just literally taking the world by storm. Half dozen languages. It's been translated into one book of the year.
I heard that
From
Vanishing Ink was saying, yeah, it was the book of the year, and it was
yeah,
something that is just, yeah,
one of their
caught
best
fire
sellers.
internationally.
Yeah, it really, I mean, I'm proud of it, obviously, but I mean, again, I'm not going to tout it. Other magicians have, and I'm so grateful for that. But it took over a decade for me to release a sequel. I didn't have it necessarily planned. I did some, smaller self-published books in the meantime, but then I released the second hardcover book called The Nth Degree, was like, how do you, reach the ultimate potential in your magic? And that was a couple of years ago. And then I had so much fodder for new material, and I just been working incessantly on this for a few years. And so, as we record this podcast, the book's coming out tomorrow, but it'll probably be out by the time you listen to this. It's called Final Degree, and it's my biggest, most, I think my most impressive collection of card magic since. I think One Degree had 20 routines. This has 28 routines in there, and again, following the same format: essays, powerful tricks, and the book stands on Final Degree stands on its own. But I think as a trilogy, they all kind of feed off each other. It's like an ecosystem, as Andy Gladwin calls it, of moves and ideas that kind of inform each other. But so yeah, so in addition to Final Degree released as as a book any day now, it's going to be available as the One Degree trilogy. The Degree trilogy, and it's in a nice slipcase and everything. So yeah, very exciting to see how that journey, where that's come. And my wife hates the title because she thinks it's like it's kind of sad. You're ending it. I go, no, I'm putting an end to the degree thing. I've been branded as the
You can
degree
move on to
focus,
something else. Yeah, you're the
I
degree
think,
guy.
and I even talk about it in the book. Like, I'm not exactly sure what the next thing will be, but I know it'll be another evolution, another some more groundbreaking ideas. So, yeah, but for almost 15 years been focusing on the degree, and it's really nice to see it. This is a trilogy. I don't know how often you see a trilogy in magic. So it's nice to see this all come together. So proud of it, and yeah, we did a really cool launch at the castle, like I said
Hmm.
last week, and there's 7 chapters. I did a trick from each chapter. We recorded it too, so I'm sure Vanishing Ink will make that available, so people can watch that. Because in addition to me doing demonstrations from the book, we had a panel with me, Joshua J, and then David Regal and Larry Wilmore. I think great insights offered there, not just about my magic, but just how we all approach magic. And
Are
yeah.
those evenings recorded also? So if you're a Castle member, you can go back and watch that as well?
Typically, if it's a magician's lecture, it's on the castle site. This is a little bit different. This was a book signing, book launch event
Okay, I
filmed in the
see.
afternoon at the
Right.
castle. We discussed the live streaming or not. Ultimately, just got approval to record it, but release it later. I don't know if it's going to release on the castle part, but I know Vanishing Ink will release it. So
Hmm.
we'll see. But it'll be definitely be available to those. I'm assuming those who purchased the book. But yeah, we filmed it all. And yeah, it's an exciting thing. But yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe the castle do it as well, but it's a little bit different. It wasn't your typical magic lecture.
And the essays that you include in there are all from your thoughts. They're not necessarily like interviews with somebody else or talking
No,
about,
they're
I was
they're
inspired
they're
by
my
so and
thoughts.
so. Okay.
It's really nice to hit, Andy and Josh. They have they published many books, right?
Sure.
And their words, not mine. And just in terms like, man, like these are some of your best tricks you've ever done, but also some of your best essays. I mean, it's
Hmm.
not convoluted theory. It's practical ideas, things that make you think. So we talk about the power of agility in magic, the creative process, achieving mastery, purpose. I even dissect about the anatomy of a routine and my kind of my signature close-up routine of the castle, and I just break it down step by step by step. Yeah, that was neat. So we took a deep dive in these essays, and yeah, but yeah, I think Josh and Andy were particularly impressed and just proud of the essays as well. So it's nice.
Well, I believe they have been impressed because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you've also been featured as a lecturer at one of the Magi Fest, haven't you been?
I did, yeah. I was there, man. It was, like, what year is it? 24.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
a
I was
ways
at Magic.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did the lecture, and I actually did music and magic, which is fun. And then I went, a month or two later, I went on the retreat that Vanishing Ink hosts
Oh,
every year.
yeah.
And I was
Those
one of
I've never
the,
been to, but I've heard they're
oh,
just fantastic. People I've talked to say I'll never miss another one.
it was great.
Where
They're
did
in
you go?
Sean.
Which country? Or did you go to the U.S.?
It was Egypt. It was Egypt. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'd never been. I've been to 13 other countries, but haven't been there yet. So hey, John, do you want to be one of our featured performers? Oh my God, of course I do.
Well, yeah. Well, let
So
me think about it. Yeah.
yes, exactly. So that was amazing to be. We had a few nights at the Four Seasons Cairo, and then
Wow.
and I'm walking by the pool, and I see Michael Amar reading my book. Like, what the hell? This is I could die right now.
This is so surreal.
Yeah, yeah. But we had a good time, and then we flew to Luxor, and then we went on a cruise ship for 4 nights on the Nile. So
Uh-huh.
here I am doing a show of music and magic. So I actually bought a special guitar, one that the neck comes off and folds into a carry-on bag, so I can travel and play. But yeah, anyway, that was a big year. Be able to do lecture at at the retreat and Magi Fest, and then last year I was nominated for Lecturer of the Year at the Magic Castle, which is my first nomination ever. So
Wow.
um, ultimately, Howard Hamburg won, and I couldn't be more thrilled for him.
Hmm.
But just to be listed with him and the others, and Eric
Sure.
Jones, and I'm forgetting other names, but yeah, some great lectures. But yeah, that was such an honor. But again, validating, I would say, back to your original question about being a creator. I said, yeah, I think for these nominations and lectures I've done, definitely, and books, of course. Yeah, I think creator is a good label.
Yeah, you wouldn't have gotten to where you are without creating those
Yeah,
places for you, right?
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. As far as the music goes, that's another thing that I think is an interesting kind of thread to follow because
Yeah,
I like Ben Jackson is a friend of mine who is in Houston and he has a one-man show like Steve Cohen and some other guys do. And in his case, he is a musician, plays the piano, so he adds that as part of his show. And
yeah,
it is so perfectly woven into the rest of the show that it just enhances it so much. It's like, oh, you also play an instrument and very
yeah,
well then too. And likewise, I would think like with you, again, like when you were saying earlier, where you're actually playing in the corner or whatever, and then you stand up and do some magic. And wait a minute, you were this, wait a minute,
yeah,
the same guy over
yeah.
there than a while ago. So do you weave that into, again, you said in your close-up room, obviously you're playing some music in the background. You could say, well, this
Yeah.
is my music.
I, I'm sorry to cut you off. I
No,
kind of
that
know
was
your
all I was going
question's
to
going.
say.
Yeah, how I
Yeah.
weave it together. Yeah, yeah. So in the castle, I do an 18-minute act. I wish I could, but I just don't have the time to pick up my guitar and play. But
Right.
weaving in a story about that I also compose music, and here's a song I wrote just for you, and dude. So it adds definitely to the experience. But I do once in a while do some gigs. I have like a 90-minute show that when I can, I'll do like, this is more of a paid public performance. And I've done this at the castle as well. They
Hmm.
had a special evening where I did a couple of shows. But anyway, I do a kind of a 90-minute show that weaves storytelling and magic and music. So I'll, bring up some cool topics, from growing up in California to, my work in philanthropy even. But all the stories kind of go to a topic where this inspired this these few tricks I'm going to show you, and also inspired these few songs I'm going to play for you. So
Hmm.
it is kind of getting up and down from playing guitar, and I think it's a really captivating experience. I love doing it. I wish I had more time to, have a residency for a short amount of time at the theater, which I haven't done. But um, I love doing those shows where I get to really bring everything up, bring it out. Yeah,
My friend Richard Hatch he used to have a show called Chamber Magic in which his
yeah,
wife Rosemary would play the violin because she used to
yeah,
play with the symphony, and then they would have a friend who played the piano, and so in between magic they would have her featured on the violin or the two of them playing a duet, or he might be doing some magic to the music. It was
yeah.
just a wonderfully scripted evening with magic and
I think that's really cool if
symphonic music.
if it's woven together. And what I just described, was I'm going to shift from magic to music now. But that integration is really cool.
Hmm.
I know Richard well, and it's a great, I think that's a good example. I've seen other musicians slash magicians do things, the card appears in between the strings of their guitar and stuff. So not really there. There are times where I've definitely had the jumbo card, paste glued
Glued
on
on
the
the back
back
of
of
the
my
ear. Yeah,
guitar
yeah,
for
yeah.
a really cool
Seems to be
reveal,
the obvious thing. Yeah.
things like that, right? I've seen other magicians who I'm forgetting the name, so I really wish I can give credit here. But where like I think they're playing the ukulele, but their pick is actually their folded signed
Oh,
card. Like what
yeah.
a cool idea, right? So
Yeah. John
I'm
Archer
looking.
plays
Oh,
the
he
violin.
does.
Yeah.
And he definitely when I think he was at the Castle Awards and he definitely
Hmm.
played comedy, music, and magic, right? So again, that's an example of using all the crayons in your box. And I'm a big fan of that. I try to model that for others.
Hmm.
I'm a big fan of, Nelson Mandela's one of his famous speeches where he says like let your light shine. And kind of go back to the castle. I don't know if my biggest fear was actually scared to perform. I think it was just scared to let my light fully shine. And I knew I
Hmm.
was good enough, but it was a fear of just stepping into the spotlight. And so anyway, I try to promote that a lot. And from what I post on LinkedIn, which kind of goes more on the leadership side, but I will post songs and magic as well. That's a nice surprise. But I post a lot on social as well. But I try to not just post tricks and songs, but like just examples. Like, yeah, you're like use all the crayons in your box, like blend them in uncommon ways. And so, yeah,
And I also like that your music is available online. I've subscribed to Spotify, and so
yeah.
before I start the recording on this for the last half hour, I've been listening to some of the music on Spotify. It's like, okay, this is my new favorite. I'm going to be hitting this a lot.
Yay!
So
I have a new listener. That's amazing.
new
It's
subscriber.
a passion project for me, but I love seeing new listeners, and I'll get the monthly report. Oh, you have X number of new listeners from these different countries. Like, cool.
I'd
That's not
recommend
why I
it for
do
those
it.
who are listening. Go check it out. Yeah, just
I
you
had
type
I
in
had
your
a
name
friend.
basically.
I appreciate it. I love, and I've had so many magicians say it's a great kind of creative backdrop. If they're just thinking or reading, it's not
Exactly.
distracting. Some of them are mellow. Some of them are, you probably heard some of the little fast runs as well, which is kind of fun. But ultimately, I think it's music I love to write and
And you've
other
written
magicians.
those. I mean, like Mystery, I think was the title of one of them,
Yeah,
and some
yeah. I've
others.
composed I have 7 albums that are in total. They're streaming on all the platforms, and
Hmm.
it's all original music that I've recorded. And it's funny. I think I have some good quality recording songs, but ultimately it's pretty lo-fi the way I record them. I use my phone and a multi-track recorder, simple
Hmm.
mic going right in, a little bit of reverb and echo, and that's it. So, but sometimes, I'm here with 2 daughters and my wife, and sometimes I really have an idea I want to record, but they're sleeping or they're busy. So I'll go in the garage and sit in the back seat of my car and I'll lay down some tracks there as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, but you find the time, you got to seize those moments of inspiration, whether it be magic or music or
Well,
otherwise.
you touched on other platforms also. I mentioned Spotify because that's what I use, but also you can listen on iTunes and I'd forget what all
Yeah.
else.
And
And
Apple Music,
mhm.
Amazon Music, most of them. Yeah. So even there's one song I have called La Mezquita, which is like the temple in Spanish. I haven't been to Cordoba, Spain, but my guitar, one of my favorite guitars is built in Cordoba, Spain. So I was doing some research. Oh, let me see, I'll show you. I don't know if it's visual. Yeah, but there's like this little arches on the top and the headstock, and this is
Yes,
the
okay.
archi that's the it's
Looks like an
inspired by the
eyebrow. That's what I think they call that.
it's like it's oh yeah,
Architecture.
it's like three little inlaid ivories that kind of
Hmm.
make an arch in a way, and it's
Right.
the architecture of the La Mezquita in Cordoba, Spain. Oh, cool. So then I was reading about it, and then wrote a song of La Mezquita. But when people are touring that temple, a lot of times they'll use my music on TikTok or Instagram as the backdrop songs. I'm like, where are these thousands of people are are choosing this song because of the title. So it's kind of fun to hear my song in certain posts throughout Spain. So it's kind of
You
fun.
never know what it is that's going to resonate.
Never know, never know. But yeah, well, thank you. I'm glad you dug the music. That's kind of fun.
I really do. Yeah, I
Yeah,
that's my kind of thing because you're talking about other magicians who like to kind of meditate or think about that. And I listen to Baroque music and classical music and just some classic jazz. Then also
yeah,
in the background, or like I mentioned, Otmar Liebert.
yeah,
So those are the kinds that while I am working on sending emails or I can't edit the podcast because obviously I'm listening to what the people are saying and trying to see cuts out the uhs and ahs and everything over there, try to make it a little bit tighter. But whenever I am just on the computer regularly, I have that in the background. The reason I
yeah,
like that is because if I'm listening to the lyrics or songs that have lyrics that are some of my favorites, particularly from the oldies, like with Pink Floyd or
yeah,
whomever, that I'm listening to that and I'm singing along and I'm getting distracted because I'm thinking
yeah,
subconsciously about that. So I'd
yeah,
rather have something that does not have any lyrics. It's just going to be instrumentals only
yeah,
that I
yeah,
can then let my mind wander. And that kind of soothing music is just that. I remember my son in high school he was the one who turned me on to Otmar Liederer when he was like a junior in high
yeah,
school. And I just would go by his room and I could hear that. And he said I was just using this to study kind of in the background. It's like, wow, well, that
yeah.
sounds great.
I love that. And Almar Liebert was my great influences. Also, Acoustic Alchemy was another like a
Oh,
duo.
loved Acoustic Alchemy.
Yeah,
Had all their
Struns and Para.
CDs.
Oh,
Hmm.
me too. Yeah. So and I think you aptly described it, because it's not pure flamenco. I would say it's flamenco-esque on some of the faster ones, but it is a kind of a flamenco jazz uh, combo, and it's taken like multiple influences I've had, and so it's funny. I when I first got a guitar in my teens, I was mainly playing hard rock, even heavy metal. I was so into like Black
Yeah.
Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Metallica. I would play all that, but I have a nylon string acoustic that I play all the time. But I'm still influenced a little bit. So some on the faster scales, I'm drawing on my my heavy metal roots as well. So uh, yeah, but it's fun. I've been quietly. I've been kind of almost every year releasing a new album that I've recorded, but it's been 2 years since my last one because I just haven't had the time. I have
Hmm.
9 songs kind of hiding in the background that I'm so I can't wait. I like maybe one or two more to add to it. And I'm kind of following Jay Sankey's view on creativity, that creativity is not something you do, it's just something that happens. And I'm just waiting for that inspiration to hit. So after I let 2 more songs percolate and kind of happen, I'll release that as well. But I think you're going to dig the new music that's
Looking
coming out.
forward to it.
Yeah,
You know Rafael Benatar, of course, and do
I
you see
do.
him at the
Yeah,
castle from
I
time to
did.
time?
Yeah,
Now
he had a
he
special.
plays.
Yeah. I've seen him perform, and I've also seen him perform his guitar as well.
Yeah.
And at the castle they had a special evening with Rafael
Oh,
Benatar playing guitar, and or lute, right?
it's
I
for the
think
lute, correct?
yeah. And and like, wow, this is amazing. And then I went to the castle. I got like I'd love to do something similar if that's cool. Um and he did a little bit of music, a little bit of magic. And I thought, oh, cool. So I did so they did a special Wednesday night thing. This is going back a few
Right.
years ago. But anyway, I was inspired by his appearance at the castle. They had he's doing his week at the castle, but he also had a special evening just doing the music, which I thought, how cool is that? So yeah, I love Raphael. I love his music and magic. So
Yeah.
another big influence.
I had him as a guest many years ago, and he was telling me about the music and like with you, it said, "Here's a website you can go and listen to some of my music playing the lute." And wow, yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're actually putting out some digital material, start to say CDs, I guess now everything is all digital. I mean, do they make CDs? They sell CDs anymore?
Not really, but I do once in a while. I'm at a gig, and they'll say, "Hey, do you have any CDs?" So my
Hmm.
last couple albums, I printed my own. I printed a really nice CD. My most current album is called "Timeless Traveler," and I have that on CD. So I bring them to my gigs for those. 'Cause a lot of us still have like maybe in our car we have a CD player,
Yeah.
maybe
Have
in
you
our house.
have you thought
Yeah,
about printing vinyl? That is a
I
hot thing right
haven't, but
now.
it's making a comeback, right?
Big
Yeah.
comeback.
Yeah. Yeah, I have I have most of my music on SoundCloud as well.
Yeah.
Just I kind of house it completely there, but I see all the little pop-ups for hey, you get vinyl. So I might do maybe just a few limited edition vinyl.
Yeah.
So as long as there's an audience for it. But ironically, I was at a gig last night. Well, my wife is she's actually the new CEO of the Anaheim YMCA where we work, and she's been doing that a while. So yeah, so she leads nonprofit. My older daughter is at a nonprofit. I'm a nonprofit. So Emma, my youngest, we'll see. She's a senior in high school. We'll see. But anyway, we're at the YMCA gala, and of course, my wife asked if I would play guitar at the after party, which I did. It's great. But yeah,
Hmm.
but I got a nice note from a magician friend who was at my book signing. Hey, John, just want to let you know I'm currently reading your book, or reading your essay on the power of agility as I listen to Timeless Traveler in the background. And like, oh, what a nice note to hear. That's great. It's a nice note to hear that, I just put it out there. You don't know necessarily the difference it's making.
Right.
But it's nice to hear that you and others are listening to it. And
I'm
so,
always just fascinated to hear about other magicians and their artistic and creative outlets they have outside of just magic,
yeah.
knowing that there are other kinds of alternate streams of revenue that different people have, but in particular with music, because people say, like in my case, they'll say, I say I'm a magician, and they say, well, what instrument do you play? Because
I
they hear
know.
I'm sure you get that all the time, of
I get
course.
all the cover, and I got it covered no matter how they pronounce it. I get it
Exactly.
covered.
You're covered. You say, well, I play
Yeah.
the guitar, and you can go down that
Isn't
direction,
that
but
funny?
if they
Yeah.
hear you correctly, you can go down the other direction. That's why I
That's
always
right.
say, well, I play the cards. And they go, what? The
Wait, what?
cards.
That's funny.
And then we kind of go down, talking about that. But yeah, you can go down whichever avenue that they hear you say.
Yeah.
But
That's
I think
fun.
that, again, there are a lot of magicians who do have that as a creative outlet, and I applaud you for that. And particularly, it's something I really enjoy
Yeah.
listening to. I'm glad I kind of got turned on to that. So, again, recommend others to check that as well. We talked about the close-up that you do, and I mentioned, do you work in the parlor and do you do some stand-up then too, or?
I have I do and my side gigs and stuff and even corporate speaking gigs where I'm in front of a
Yeah,
group, right? So I'm feel pretty comfortable in a standing environment. And Joshua J said, man, that's the next room for you, the
it
parlor. But I
is.
haven't officially done the parlor. I'm always booked in close up, which I love that room as well.
Hmm.
But I certainly have enough material to do a parlor show as well. So we'll see. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, but it was nice. I was just actually Josh's new place that he has in Vegas. He's a new home over there, and so me and Matt Baker, another great magician, hung out for a few nights at his place, and we just jammed. It was fun. But anyway, I think during that time together, he said, "Man, you that I could totally envision you in the parlor next." So
Hmm.
yeah, we'll see. Yeah, but not yet, not yet.
Okay. So you want to put together something that is going to be a killer routine that will complement your
Yeah,
close-up, I
I
guess.
pitched it to Jack Goldfinger once or twice. Yeah, I just think it's when he's filling up the spots and like you're tried and true in close up. Let's just get you back in close up again, or get
Yeah.
you, David and Larry, all in close up. Yeah, but we'll see if they ever want to kind of change things up a bit. I think I definitely have material to do that right now.
I like Larry, and he's on my radar also to sit down and talk with.
Yes,
He was the one whenever I got my special fellowship from the AMA a few years ago that he was the one who awarded that to me. And
that's right. And by the way,
yeah,
congrats on that.
well, thank
Yeah,
you.
and Larry will be a great guest as well. Yeah.
And then I had dinner with him at FISM. Gabe Blackstone and I were at dinner and said, I'm going to bring along Larry. And I said, that'd be great. So we got
Yeah.
to chat for a little bit. And I
Yeah.
said, yeah, I want to get your contact details and we'll get together somewhere down the road. And that was what FISM was last year, in August or
Mhm.
whenever. So time flies and here we are a year later almost.
You know what? You never know. Get somebody like Larry. David's also a writer in Hollywood,
Yeah.
but doesn't do it as much as he used to. But Larry, from producing and creating and writing and stand-up comedy, like, but he just loves magic. And so no matter how busy he is, I get a call at 11 o'clock as he's driving home from whatever. Okay, John, I had this idea for a trick. What do you think? And so we just love that. But I think, despite how busy he is, we all are, I think he would totally love to, share his story because,
You mentioned earlier about afterwards, sometimes you guys go over to Cantor's, and that's one of my favorite places for breakfast. But I never have been over there like for a jam session after the castle. I guess I haven't been on the inside with
this
the
is going back
cool
like a
cool
couple
kids.
decades, Scott. So I don't
Okay,
even know
okay.
if yeah, this is
Feel like
back
I'm
in the
left out.
heyday on our Wednesday night thing. So it might have been
Never
IHOP
mind.
or In-N-Out or Cantor's. Yeah. I have no idea even if it's still around, to be honest.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
over in that neck of the woods, seems like Cantor's is the only building. I mean, it looks like they're about ready to tear down the whole block or something.
Interesting.
They're all
Yeah.
vacant. I don't know what's going on.
Not sure, not
Mm.
sure. But at least the castle is here to stay.
Yep,
So
that's good
that's
news.
always great. It was kind of up in the air a little bit, and
Was good
but
hands with
back,
Randy.
yeah, it is a good hazard,
Yeah.
Randy. And I'll just one quick Randy story because to have him in my show. I People always say, "Oh, are you nervous to have people in your show, like other magicians?" I go, "No, I love it." And even
Mhm.
celebrities. I had Scarlett Johansson in my show a few times ago, and with her husband Colin Jost, and they're
Yeah.
all so gracious. It's so nice. I get to hang out. But yeah, but having Randy in my show, but I did. Well, the first trick in the book Final Degree, I'll just hold it up for if you are watching it, but this is Final Degree here. But the first trick is called Lightning Strikes Twice, and it's kind of my take on Chicago opener. Um, and yeah, he said that after the show, he goes, "Man, that has to be the best version of Chicago opener I've ever seen." And very cool. Thank you for that. I'm really
Yeah.
proud of it, and I'll let people discover it on their own. But it has some really cool moments in there. I don't know if it'll fool another magician, but it'll certainly make it. Oh my God, why didn't I think of that? So it's exciting.
I remember being nervous, as you can imagine, the first time when I was working the castle, and I want to say 1981. And first night, second show, front row, right, stage right, there's Di Vernon.
Yeah. Oh my
Um,
God.
Come in. I mean, yeah, no nerves or anything at all. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And he came in three more times to watch. And when we were out front, and he was saying, "I like that little thing you were doing with that cup, and you were using the sugar cube. Hey, that's just clever, And he was going on,
Isn't
made
that
me
the
feel great.
best?
Yeah, I just
Yeah,
people have said about how cantankerous that he was, but to me, he was like a father figure. And
um,
I was sitting at the bar, and he even got up from his seat over there in the corner and came over and sat with me, and he said, "Enjoy the show." I said, "Let me show you something I'm working on." He said, "It's not published yet, but this little thing here was. Just look at this." And it was kind of cool. Later got published. So I said, "Do you think I can get a business card?" And he said, "No, yeah, I got one." He opened it up and he's got like Cardini and Max Malini and all these other
oh
guys
my
who are
gosh.
long since dead. And he's kind of thumbing through all of them. He said, "Ah, here we go." And so I got one of his
Well,
business
first of all,
cards.
Scott, that's an uncanny impression.
Oh,
Uh, Secondly, how cool! I'm so envious that you had a moment like that. I
yeah,
never got to meet Diverden, and I met Larry Jennings and a
yeah.
few others, I guess, from that kind of that classic group.
Well,
I never
Larry
should
was part of L and L. That was the L. It was
that.
Lewis and Larry.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know that.
That's exactly
I
right.
didn't know Larry Jennings was connected to that.
Yep.
There you go.
A little bit
Okay.
of trivia.
Well, yeah, but I'm sitting at the bar and I'm still nervous to show Larry anything. I see him there. The bartender I said, "Hey, Larry, met John. John, meet Larry. John, show him something." So, and then he said, "I know exactly how you didn't do that," because he
He
was
didn't
told.
do that.
Oh, what a cool comment from Larry Jennings. So,
Uh-huh.
but I look over at the Vernon table. I see Howard Hamburg there. I just saw him the other
Right.
night. It was great. But I know so much history happened there, and I'm so thanks for sharing that story with Di Vernon. That's amazing.
Well, be sure and
Well,
tell Howard hello for me. I love that man. I
I
call him from
will.
time to time, just see how he's doing. I guess he's kind of gotten through his cancer and things doing much better physically. So I just say hi.
Okay, I will. I will,
Yeah,
Scott. Thank you. Yeah. Have you had him on as a guest before?
I have. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah, yeah,
More than once. I mean, the
yeah.
thing is, it's kind of like, I guess, years ago that George Burns used to say to Gracie Allen, his wife, about, well, how's your mother? And then he would just sit back and smoke a cigar and she would just go on. She'd be the whole act. Same thing, like I would say, well, so tell me a story about Di. And there he goes, or Larry Jennings, or goodness sakes. I mean, I don't have to ask another question.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
just is very entertaining and has all this wealth of
Oh, I know.
knowledge.
I know who's leading the interview. Actually, if you have Howard Hawkins, he's no shortage of stories. And
I just felt like I'm sitting in the corner listening to a master there. And
there you go.
his
Yeah.
lectures are a lot like that too. If you've heard him at
Oh,
a
yeah.
convention, he will have about half magic and half reminiscing of just. And if you've heard the lecture, usually it's some of the same stories over and over, but they're all good. They're good. Yeah,
That's what I think magicians like that. They just don't want trick after trick after trick. They want the
sure.
context or an
Right.
interesting
To know more about the
anecdote.
person who's
Yeah, yeah,
telling the stories.
exactly.
Yeah. Hmm.
Even strolling magic, it's you know this too. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh my God, it's great! Like, when did you get into magic?" Or and sometimes magicians might feel like they're getting off script. Go,
Hmm.
well, let me show you something else. I go, no, if they asked you a question, they're genuinely interested in something. So
Correct.
sometimes take a break and kind of let them lead the way a little bit, right? And
You got a
so
good
yeah,
point
whether it's
there.
a lecture or otherwise, audiences are there for an experience. And it's funny, Larry Wilmore was sharing with me. So he did a late show at the castle. These are like from 10 p.m. till 1 a.m. in the morning. But I think he's saying one of his shows, finished show, great reaction, but the audience is still sitting there. And he's like, oh, that's the end. And they're
Time to
like,
go.
but I think he jokingly said, any questions? And then people said, yeah, like what was it like creating a Bernie Mac show? And they ended up having a 10-15 minute conversation, which was cool. He didn't have another show after that. So how cool is that? Sometimes there's an inherent curiosity that audiences have. We think they're thinking, how do you do that? But they might be thinking, wow,
I think people want
I
to
feel
know
really
about
connected.
our lives, how we
Yeah.
got into it, why
Yes.
we
Yes.
continue to do it, what are some interesting stories, because they know we've got interesting stories about other people who have interacted with us or people
Yeah.
we performed for or places we visited or whatever.
Hmm. You're right. Yeah. And I think, certainly magicians who have characters, that's fine as well. I'm pretty
Sure.
authentic in my magic. And I try to, from that truth in advertising trick I described earlier, it is kind of talking about my, early career in advertising or, my a act is essentially a vacation from reality, talking about some of the places I visited, traveling with, magic and talking about Venice, Italy, which is true. And a
Mhm.
song I wrote called Venezia, which is, you could find that on Spotify, by the way, but I do Vino Oasis too, a song called Venezia. But I like telling stories that are rooted in reality because I think you can't fake authenticity, and to the extent you're magicians are comfortable with that, I think allow a little bit of yourself to shine. You don't have to tell them your life story, but if a trick is infused with who you are, I think it's a I'll do one little aside joke. I think we talked about that with David Regal. He said, "Well, unless you're a dick, like, or something like that, like, unless you're an asshole, you don't want to abuse yourself." That's just David's sense of humor. But,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think just sharing. I think in one of the essays I talk about, you want to be authentic and you want to focus on your strengths. Sometimes
Mhm.
we want to try to do something like we're never like I'll never be good at a diagonal palm shift as good as the others, and I don't use it in my but I focus on my strengths and my authenticity. But I think when you combine those, I call it not just making things doable, but making them youable. And I
Hmm.
think, that's the approach that I've taken on magic, on really combining those things. And yeah,
I like
yeah,
that. Very
yeah,
good. Well,
cool.
as we wrap up over here, I want to thank you again for being my guest here. And as you know, the name of my podcast is called The Magic Word. And then as a listener, you know that I always like to end with hearing what your magic word is.
Oh my gosh. Well, I will say, since I'm just so focused and I'm so excited, within under 24 hours, my book Final Degree is coming out. So
Yep.
if I could use two words, I will say
Yeah.
final degree.
Final degree.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Again, I appreciate you being a guest, and I know everybody was listening got a lot out of this. This hour seemed to have gone by very quickly as I just looked
sure
at the
did.
clock and realized, oh my goodness, yeah,
Yes.
here we go. And so, thanks again. So, for the Magic Word Podcast, that was John Guastaferro. This is Scotty out. Thank you again, John, for being my guest this week on the Magic Word Podcast. I certainly enjoyed getting to know you better, and I know the rest of the listeners got a lot out of this as well because now they have made a new friend too. And so, if you want to see John perform, oftentimes, again, he is at the Magic Castle where he's working, as he said, a couple of times a year doing close up there. Other than that, he's kind of out on the road and kind of working with the philanthropy organizations. So you may not catch him except occasionally when he is in town in the Los Angeles area. So again, thank you very much, John. And I thank you, listeners, for coming in and tuning into this. I mentioned at the top of the podcast that we do have a contest running. And for those who are listening to this and watching this video in real time, that is, as it's being released, that you will have about 2 weeks to enter the contest. If you're watching this after the contest is over, then the books have already been awarded. And so they're not going to be available. But if you go right now, as you're listening to this, and if it is within that 2 week window of opportunity, you can go to themagicwordpodcast.com for this week's episode, and you will see an opportunity where that you can fill in your name and email address and win a chance, or rather enter for a chance to win, let's see, he said a copy of the nth degree or the final degree. So those will be his books, which he is going to have available. And he said, by the way, that he will cover the foreign postage. So this is open to everybody in the world, which I think is a great, great gift that he is giving out because there is a lot of cost involved, not just with the printing of the book and everything, but particularly when there is some foreign shipping. So you need to give him a special thank you when you see John, even if you don't win, for the fact that he has made such a nice gift, showing again what a good philanthropic guy that he is and thinking about others rather than himself. He seems to put others first. So until next week, stay well, get booked, and remember the final degree may be that next degree. So think about just inching your magic up 1 degree at a time and how that you can interact better with the audience. This is Scotty out.